Today, I'm talking with Robert Foster, owner of Cedar Hill Farm. Now, let's just talk about Cedar Hill Farm here for a quick second. It is a family-owned and operated farm with 120 acres of rolling hills, surrounded by cedar tree-lined fences and woods. You can bring your family down to escape the hustle of the city and enjoy the peace and quiet of country life. Whether it's taking a tractor-drawn hayride around the farm, out to the Easter egg hunt field in the spring, picking berries in the summer, the pumpkin patch and corn maize in the fall, or to the choose and cut Christmas tree fields in the winter, every season brings something new to the farm. They are open to the public seasonally and by reservation for company picnics, family reunions, weddings, and other private events year-round. And you can find Cedar Hill Farm located at 8 Love Road, Hernando, Mississippi. Robert, thanks for having me over here today. I appreciate it.
Happy to do it. Glad to have you.
So, man, I'm looking forward to this. I've heard a lot about you and the farm because as I've been interviewing other businesses, it seems like, you know, as they should, and what makes Hernando special is they source locally. So the group of people that sent me your way were Steve and Karen Cubbage from Area 51 Ice Cream because they sourced the berries for their I think it's the goat cheese and berry ice cream, which I can't wait to try.
Yeah, the blackberry goat cheese.
Blackberry goat cheese, you know, so that's when you kind of was on my radar to finally be able to reach out with you. We met a couple weeks ago, and I'm very excited to be here with you today, so I appreciate your time.
Well, we're excited about doing it. Thanks for having us on.
So I want to talk history. I want to talk story behind you and the farm, but let's paint the picture here. We are what I would gather is the main lobby.
Yeah,
correct?
The gift store, restaurant, you know, check-in area, the kind of the main hub.
So you walk in, you walk in, you get the counter with, you know, all kinds of food, a classic Coca-Cola soda cooler, which is great. It's got the bottle opener on the front.
Yeah.
That's outstanding. And then when you walk into your right, you're going to see maple syrups and ceramics and cups and looks like all kinds of cool stuff. So
yeah, we try to, you know, carry a lot of products in our gift store that are, you know, Mississippi, like potteries and different products like the pecans and, you know, things that come from our state. And we do some canning and jelly making ourselves that we grow, you know, berries on our farm here. And we carry some Area 51 ice cream, of course, best ice cream over in our ice cream cooler, and people can get some of that to go if they're out here at the farm. And
do you have any lemon ice box in there?
I don't have any lemon ice box right now, but we've got like some mocha fudge brownie, I think, and some Dutch chocolate and some mint chocolate chip and salted caramel and you know, some of the good favorites.
It's all good.
Yeah, it's all great.
Lemon ice box is one of your favorites. My go-to. Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. And then to your left, it looks like you have a dining room.
Yeah, that's the dining room. And, you know, a lot of people know this area is kind of the concession stand during our fall and busier seasons, you know, but it's also a restaurant outside of our October season. So it's open, you know, year round on the weekends for restaurants. So.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's really cool in here. It just has a nice vintage feel to it. It's awesome. So, well, great. Let's talk about the history and the story behind Cedar Hill Farm. Having getting to know you so far, you know, and knowing a little bit about the story. It's family owned, as I mentioned in the intro, and it started way back when your grandfather bought some land, correct? Mm-hmm. So let's start there.
Okay.
Like, what compelled him to buy the land that we're sitting on right now?
Well, he was looking for, you know, some investment land and some agricultural land back in the 70s. To run cattle on, and my uncle ran cows here on this farm back in the 70s and 80s, and they bought the farm from the Glenn family, and the Glenn family, who we have met some of the descendants of that of Mr. Glenn over the years, you know, homesteaded this place, and they built the house. They built one of the original barns that was still on the property that we use as our animal barn. Everybody knows it as the chicken show barn, the animal barn. They built that, you know, around 100 years ago. They actually lived in that barn while they were building the house with the animals, which was, you know, typical back in that day. The barn was one of the first structures usually built. The story goes that they, you know, dug clay out of some of the ditches in the area. Of course, there is a lot of clay and gravel in the area, and they made the bricks that the house is built out of. And the what people know of the little brick bathrooms on the farm where was an original pump well house where they drew their water, and they built that. And so that building is original, very old.
Yeah. What year was that built?
All that stuff was built in the 30s to 40s.
Wow.
So we're coming up. The barn itself definitely was probably 20s, 20s to really early 30. We don't know the exact date, but it's around 100 years old now.
They built it to last, didn't they?
They did build it to last. We have put a new roof on it. We've, made some repairs on some of the wood over the years to maintain the structure. But we've kept the original, structure intact and preserved it as best as we could.
That's great that they actually made the bricks too.
They did, yeah.
I mean, talk about from scratch.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, if you wanted something, you had to make it yourself. It's really hard to source things, not the same way we do things now.
And it's telling of the times too.
It is. Yeah.
They had to be resourceful in that way.
Yeah.
We try to live by the land sometimes, but can't compare it to
not like what they used to.
No.
Yeah.
You go back a century, things are different.
Right. Yep.
So what was next as they were just continued to build the farm up?
My uncle and like my grandfather, they had a cattle operation and a farming operation. There's actually another big section of the farm, a section of farm, 500 and something acres over on the Ranch Road area, right down the road, where they row cropped and also had some cows and some chicken houses and some other things. And eventually, there were periods like all throughout where agriculture goes up and down, and it was kind of going through a rough period. The story goes, and they got out of the agricultural business, and my uncle went and started another career. And my family moved into the area and bought this land from my grandfather and my uncle and my aunt, and my parents bought them, out on this farm, this one part of the, 120 acre section of agricultural land. And we moved here in the, late 80s.
Okay.
I was about 5 years old when we moved down here. And I remember the old house, it's a 1930s house, going through a lot of renovation. Restored a lot of it and kept, as much of the original as they could, but it went through a lot of renovation. And so it's got a lot of history there. And then I remember going on, before this big trip that we went on to St. Louis that kind of kicked off the business side, my mom and dad, really my mom more than anything, just she liked having animals. And so, we started gathering animals at the farm, typical farm animals.
Yeah, you had the space for them.
We had the space. And I grew up, with my brothers, we had some ponies and we'd ride them around. We had a couple of quarter horses too, but when we were little, we'd ride the ponies around all over the farm. And
that's cool.
we had ponies, we had tractors. We cut hay, we sold hay for years. And I remember even as a little kid, being pretty young, driving the tractor down the road real slow, or the truck, while they were loading the hay on the tractor before I was even big enough to load the hay on the trailer. And, so we sold hay for a long time, started planting some blackberries, doing some U-pick blackberries when I was younger. And then we went on a trip to St. Louis, summer vacation. And we're going to go to a Cardinals game. And the funny story behind that is, first MLB baseball game, and they went on strike that year. It was one of those strike years back in the 90s, early 90s.
Yeah.
And it was the day of the strike, when we were supposed to go watch them play baseball. I do remember that vividly, and I was pretty upset about that.
And many others were too.
Because I'd gone to St. Louis to watch my first professional baseball game, and they went on strike.
It took a while for MLB to recover from that too.
Yeah. So that was that vacation. If I recall properly, is so many things that and we ended up stopping by a farm called Eckert's Farmers Market, and back in the early 90s, agritourism Now, the genesis of agritourism has been around for hundreds of years. People have always sold off the side of the road, produce, extra eggs that they have, and that's not new. People have done that since the beginning of roads and farms.
And what's the term for that again?
Agritourism. Agricultural is short for agricultural tourism.
Right.
So, back in the day, it was just a roadside farmer's market, a roadside stand. Everybody remembers, probably growing up driving by those on the highways their whole life. That's not a new thing. Mm-hmm. But what the Eckerts and other people around the country had started kind of evolving into was adding other activities to try and draw people out from the city to there. So maybe instead of just relying just on the drive-by traffic, let's get people to come out to us. And so people started kind of focusing more on you-pick orchards, you-pick berries. We had some you-pick blackberries. We had some animals and some things that people come out, like a petting zoo. That stuff started kind of popping up. And
just giving people reason to drive up the driveway.
A reason to come out, a reason to come out to the farm. And we saw what they were doing there outside of St. Louis, and my parents felt like, wow, this is something neat that we could maybe develop more of on our farm outside of Memphis. That's really our market. We're the, DeSoto Countyans don't really like to think of themselves as part of Memphis necessarily, but we are. We're a suburb of Memphis now. It's all grown into one big metropolitan area. So we're a suburb of Memphis, and we draw from the Memphis market to our business. And we my mom really started running kind of a weekend business with some other lady friends of hers that involved doing some birthday parties for children, where they would come out, for your typical farm petting zoo and pony ride and hayride birthday party, and then they'd have cake and ice cream play on the playground. A very packaged deal that a lot of people around the country have duplicated in agritourism. And then kind of got their foot in the door. And this was all when I was young. This was when I was in middle school. This is 1996.
But man, you're getting such a young education too, if you think about it. And we're going to lead into how when you take over. But I mean, starting from scratch, you are
in the middle of it.
You're right there watching
it. I'm in the middle of
really
it
cool.
in middle school and helping, help take care of the animals, helping with the farming, and learning to cut grass and do farm work at an early age, and having chores. And you go through that period when you want to do it when you're little. You want to go drive the tractor for the first time, and you want to ride the riding lawnmower and use the weed eater. And I can't wait till I'm big enough to use a chainsaw. And then you get to that point where it's work, and you just want to go be with your friends, and you don't want to be anywhere near the farm.
Yeah.
And so I remember all those different periods when I was growing up out here on this farm where it was exciting and fun, and then it was work, and I didn't want to be here, and I wanted to be anywhere but here, because if I had to be here, it was going to be work. And she started doing some field trips too during the week, and
so schools would come in.
Yeah, so they started branching out to allowing a few schools to come in on the week, because up until that point, from '96 until probably early 2000s, it was really just kind of more weekend stuff, and having maybe some churches come on the weekends, and then branched into the first pumpkin patch. And I remember us planting our first pumpkin patch and having people come on the weekends, a few weekends of the year. And then a few schools started wanting to book, and of course I was in school myself during this period, so I wasn't around during the first field trip years, but it was my mom and some of her lady friends. It was, I think, all women that worked here, and they would do tours with the kids and do the petting zoo and the pony rides and the hayride, and they'd go get a pumpkin. And when I went through high school, we added a haunted hayride, and I recruited the first round of haunters from my friends. And my dad,
recruiting the ghouls.
I recruited all the ghouls and the goblins. And that was my first, really, I guess, part of pitching into the business, was I went and recruited the first
You
round.
brought in the evil side,
I brought in the scary side. But it's never really been, at our farm about the gore and the scare as much as the entertainment side.
Mm-hmm.
We've always kept it, because we're a Christian family, and we all, we've always wanted to keep it more about just the family fun and jumping out and scaring people and having the scares and the thrills, but not about into the dark gore stuff like some haunts do. We've stayed away from that side of it.
Yeah.
Because there's a fine line there. You can get off into some weird stuff with some of that. So we've always stayed to the side of just having fun and scaring people for fun. But I recruited those actors, and I remember the days of going out in the haunted hayride. There'd be 20 or 30 minutes between tractors. I mean, just, you might do 4 or 5 or 6 tractors all night long of, trailers of people, like, because it was just starting out. It was just a new thing. And haunted hayrides were a new thing. We were kind of in on the forefront of all that type of stuff. It was a new thing that we got into early.
How do you search for scarers? Or were you just talking to your buddies at school?
It was literally just friends of mine at school.
And then just getting together and be like, oh, it'd be cool if we did this. It'd be cool if we did that.
Yeah, we had to. I mean, there wasn't. You remember, there wasn't the internet like we have now. It was AOL dial-up. I mean, you couldn't get on and like research haunted hayride scenes, and in fact,
compared to now, that was not internet.
Right, and in fact, all that was really a new thing. And although there may have been people that had started doing it years prior, how would you know? Because there wasn't a quick internet to even find out. But we had heard of other people doing this, and my parents were like, "This would be fun." And it was really just something that just kind of sprung up where we started doing it for our local church youth group, and we did it for fun for them. And then we're like, we could do this every weekend in October and charge people and make it a business. And so that's really kind of how that came about. And so we grew that over the years, and I went off to Ole Miss. In 2001, I graduated high school. And when I went off to college, I didn't see myself coming back to this business at that point.
Interesting.
Yeah, I didn't see myself coming back to this business.
What did you see yourself doing?
I didn't really know what I wanted to do, to be honest. I wasn't sure.
Was it burnout? Was it just like, I did that all my life.
Yeah,
here. I need
high
to
school, not wanting to work, just like most high school kids, just
teenager.
To get away from the farm, it's too much work. Being, and I was gone off to school and rarely came home like most college kids. Just came home on the holidays and during summer. And
well, what'd you go to school for?
I did go for business, and so I was taking these business courses, and it was really after my sophomore year. It was sometime around my junior year. I had been exploring all the different options of career paths, because at that point I was really about to have to. I was done taking basic courses, and I was about to have to decide, which way am I going here? And I started thinking about this place again. I really kind of started missing home a little bit, and missing the farm at that point.
So by now you're in your early 20s. I'm sure,
well,
right?
I was probably 20, and I've been away for 2.5, 3 years, and I started kind of wanting to be back more and remembering all the good memories of the place. And I remember having, thoughts about, and at that point you could kind of get more on the internet and kind of look up things and kind of research a little bit. And I started kind of looking at other places and that did what my parents were doing here as a small kind of more of a weekend, but the school group side had grown a good bit. It was getting busy, and there was a huge potential there. They were doing occasional like family picnic or something too on the weekends at that point. And I started kind of researching other farms, and agritourism wasn't a word. I don't even remember how I researched it, but I found these other farms, and there was an organization called NAFTMA, North American Direct Farmers Market or something association. I forget that exact acronym, but it's other farms that do kind of what we do back in the day. And my parents had joined that group and gone on a couple of tours with them, like bus tours, where they visit other farms and see what they're doing in different parts of the country. It's kind of like research, market. And so they said, well, maybe you should go with some of these other farmers and go visit their farms.
They put you out there.
And so, because I'd been showing interest in this, and so I went on a tour with some other. What we did is we basically just drove to other farms that they had made contacts with over the years, and we went and visited their farms and saw what they were doing in other parts of the country. And we went all over the Midwest. It was like we made stops in Missouri and in Illinois, and we ended up in Iowa and hit all these different farms along the way in Tennessee, and they knew other farms around then. And so we just kept, like, for a week in the summer, all we did is drive all day from farm to farm to farm to farm to farm for like a week. Wow. And made a whole trip out of it.
Just taking notes.
Just taking notes and talking to people. And they were all in the same place we were, where they're either going to make some investment commitment and try to make a go at this new agritourism thing for real, or just kind of get out of it. My parents were at that point where they were about to just get out of it because it was a lot of work, weren't making very much money, but saw potential there to make money, to make it a business.
With every new event you kind of add, it's just more work.
Right, more work, but not really like a full business yet, but it could be. And so along that tour, I saw all these different farms, and what I did learn is location matters, and it not only matters for what type of things you might do. For instance, we can't really do a you-pick apple orchard here because we don't have the right climate for growing apples. And that's a big thing up north. You pick apples in September and early October before pumpkins come in is a big thing. But
what do you have down here that they wouldn't? Is there anything specific to
more
this
bugs
area?
and humidity? I don't know.
And clay.
Yeah. I don't really know. We have better weather in fall.
Okay.
We have they can get snow in late October.
Yeah.
We still have great weather in the fall. That's a huge advantage for us. And especially with choose and cut Christmas trees, we're still having great weather in November, and all the way into December. It can get a little cold and rainy here on occasion, but we're not under feet of snow potentially, like they can be up
You don't
north.
Need snowshoes to
You don't
get
need
out
snowshoes
to
to go cut your tree down.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference on what we're able to do here. So there's gives and takes. They start their season earlier. We're able to go later. That's the difference. That's why they start with apples up north, because they can't necessarily count on the end of October or November being even available to do anything outdoors.
It's a variable.
It could be 30 degrees or 20 degrees and 2 feet of snow by that time, and they're done.
That's it.
So I kind of came up with a plan at that point, and I thought, well, I think if I add other aspects to this business, I could make it a year-round operation and generate enough revenue to pay myself a salary and make this work. And I pitched the idea about adding blueberries, about redoing the blackberries, because I think we had gotten rid of them at that point. My parents had gotten rid of the you-pick blackberries, but adding those back in, adding blueberries, growing produce in the summer, growing Christmas trees, which I knew was going to be like a 5-year plan, but got to get them planted so I can have that revenue 5 years later, and market to the schools on a little bit bigger scale, try to draw more schools from a little bit further distance, and market to private events, corporate picnics, family reunions, things like that. So
what year now are we talking?
We're talking 2005 when I come in and take over the business.
Oh, so you pitched this stuff, but it's also a pitch to, hey, let me take the reins on this.
Because they were at the point where it was more than they wanted to deal with. They already have job. My dad already has a full-time job. My mom's getting to the point where she'd been doing it for a long time. It was wearing her out.
So
she needed help.
The farm was not your family's main source of income.
No, it was a secondary business that created a lot of work.
Yeah.
made a little bit of money, but not a lot of money. And for the amount of money it was making, it was not worth the headache, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
But it had potential because we had seen this. When you start looking at all these other farms around the country, most of the ones that were doing agritourism were big row crop farms that just did a pumpkin patch and or a corn maze in the fall as a secondary little stream of revenue.
Mm-hmm.
It was a side business. Mm-hmm. It wasn't their main focus. For us, we were going to be unique in the space in that we were going to be one of the first farms, and there are others now, there's a lot, that we went in to be an agritourism destination. The crops that we grow were only grown for the purpose of drawing people to our farm. Everything we grow is grown for you pick or on-farm sale, not wholesale production.
Right.
And so everything that I thought about and have thought about over the years is how do I get more people to come here instead of, you know, something I can grow. You know, I could grow Christmas trees wholesale and ship them out. I could grow one particular crop or two or raise cattle and sell them, but I do everything to get people
created
here.
it to make it engaging.
To make it an engaging experience.
Yeah.
And that's what we focused all of that on over the last, well, now we're in our 26th year. Last year's our 25th year.
So 2005, you're taking over in a way, but not to get deep into the business side of things, but did you have to, you know, buy your parents out, or did they just kind of like hand it over? How did that work?
we're still in that type of a transition, and that's taking a long time.
Okay.
For me to get ownership, and there's still 3 owners. Both of my parents are owners. They're still the majority share. But I'm getting more as time goes on, and because it's a big operation, it's a lot involved.
Plus, now they're getting dividends, right?
Well, you know, that's the long-term plan for everybody in a business. Obviously, is to get some kind of benefit from the investments you've made over the years in both financial equity and sweat equity. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, we as a family are working on and continuing to work on all the details of how to transition the financial side over the generational shift. Mm-hmm. But as far as the business side, you know, my mom has still worked here and worked in the office and been a part of this farm very much since I've been here. But as far as running and managing and making the decisions about what direction we head, that transition happened very quickly because they were at a point when I took over in 2005, like I said, where they were about to close the business. Yeah. And so it was kind of in a way like if I hadn't come in, there would be no, you know, Cedar Hill Farm.
There was a crossroads.
But
you came in with all that marketing.
I came
process,
in with
at least the ideas
and the energy to do it.
Right.
The energy.
Your parents are like, man, we're over this.
We've put all this time and energy. We're getting at a point in our lives that I understand now that when I was 20, I don't have the energy now that I'll be 40 next year that I had when I was 20. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a big difference in 20 and 40 in energy.
Absolutely.
And drive and
I
motivation.
don't know. I've never experienced it. I still feel 20.
You still feel 20?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just amazing.
Well, yeah. So I know, I already understand at that point where it's not that you don't want to continue to grow and to do things, but the amount of physical energy you can put into something is limited. It does limit you a little as you get older.
Plus work-life balance.
And I have obligations. I have children.
Family,
I have ball games to attend. Mm-hmm. I have other things and obligations that I didn't have when I was 20 that I now have. And so that does affect the cycles of a business.
It can also be a driving force too, because as you grow, you can hire people to handle things. So now you're working more on instead of in. So you can balance the work life, but
and also
you got to build to that point. It's
and
a
you
lot
have
of work.
to build to that point, and it's a lot of work, and it's taken us now. You know, when I first came in, it was just me doing farm work, and then I bring in a couple of extra helpers over the years, and now we've grown to the point we've added that we've got 10 full-time employees, we've got 20-something part-time employees, And then in the fall, we're at 150 employees seasonally.
Wow.
And Easter and Christmas can have 50, 60 seasonal employees. And so it has really grown, and it continues to grow. And we, with that growth, though, comes a lot of growing pains. As we grow, we're having to manage those growing pains.
On paper, it makes sense. Hire some people to handle this over here, but then that opens up a whole other a can of worms where things you didn't expect, like managing people.
Yeah, and
and payroll and all these other little
everything,
business
insurances,
stuff.
taxes, and as you add and grow, our biggest expense in this industry is labor. We're an entertainment business. We're a service industry business. Everything is very hands-on, very labor-intensive. Takes a lot of people to do what we do here. And that's why there's so many employees, because if you don't have everything staffed appropriately, you don't have parking attendants and bathroom attendants and groundskeepers and staff at all the different attractions based on how busy you're going to be, which is always a gamble based on weather.
Yeah.
You can have a day when it's supposed to be your busiest day of the season be a zero if it's storming and thunderstorming all day. So,
I bet when you started talking about attendance, like you said traffic attendants. What was some of the other attendants you mentioned? Bathroom attendants.
Bathrooms, grounds.
So I would gather those were probably speed bumps and learning curves where you're like, oh wow, it's chaos with people pulling in here and parking.
You learn hard way.
So you're like, next year we need someone to handle this
on this day.
You start learning as you go.
And on this day, you only maybe need one person, but on this day, you need 2 or 3 because it's so much busier. But then it could rain, and it's not. And
but you don't need it until you realize, oh man, I'm in deep.
You don't need it. You don't know you need it till you need it.
Right.
But I guess the one thing now, after running the business now for, I guess I've been running the business since 2005, so that's 16 years. Is I can actually foresee problems before I have them a lot of times. Where I couldn't do that before. When I plan now, it's long-term planning. And we actually have hit a point now where and it's a good problem, but it's also very complicated financially for our business where we're growing so fast, I have to purposely slow the growth down. And a lot of people think that's crazy maybe when they think about a business. Why would you not grow it as fast as you can grow it? Because in the business we're in, it can create a tremendous amount of problems if you run out of parking, if you don't have enough bathroom facilities, you don't have enough concessions, the lines get too long, people get angry about waiting in line. So all of these things have to be grown together even. You add more parking, now you got to have more bathrooms, more concessions, more tractors to put people through the attraction quicker so the lines don't get any longer. Everything has to grow together. Yeah, you would think, let's just grow more pumpkins so we can make more money. Yeah.
Oops. You need all those other things you just mentioned in order to sell them.
You got somewhere to park people. You got bathrooms for them to use, concession stands, tables and chairs, covered seating in case it's a little bit rainy. Everything has to be proportionate.
Yeah.
Everything.
So let's talk about seasons, because I found this really interesting because I'm not a farmer. I don't know how this stuff works, and it's probably farming 101. Now we have your events in the seasons, but I'm interested in also talking about just the different things that you do per season. Like you mentioned, summertime you're really busy, but not because of the tourism, but because of the preparation, actual farming, and then you have the tourism, and then you do what you need to do in the wintertime. Run like a full annual cycle. What does that look like?
And that is one thing that people that have worked here, we've got a lot of loyalty in our employees. We have a lot of people who have been working here for over 10 years, and quite a few that have been working here for 15 or more years since I've brought them in. They've been here since the beginning and some of them. There's a few that have still worked here even before I took over. The one thing that makes it interesting and unique is that by the time you get tired of one season, it changes to the next season, and the pace changes. And so you don't get into this daily grind like in a lot of businesses and jobs where you just get into this daily, weekly grind.
You're not sitting in the same cubicle
doing the same work year round. It changes with the seasons. And so what our winters are like our time to recharge our batteries, to fix the farm, fix broken things. We do all our maintenance on all of our equipment. We plan, repair work that needs to be done, that can't be done when we're having customers around.
I would gather if you want to add concession,
that would be like a major construction project would generally be scheduled for the summer when it's dry.
Okay.
We've tried winter construction, and unless it's an indoor project, it generally doesn't make sense to try to fight with the weather and the mud and the rain. And so, and we're kind of recharging our batteries that time of year, so we don't really want to get into that kind of work in the winter.
But you're maintaining and fixing.
But we're maintaining, fixing what we have during the winter. That's what we do during the winter. And of course, the restaurant now is open through the winter, but it is our slowest time of year because it's rainy and cold and it's nasty, and it's just not the busiest time for us. But it's okay because we all need time to just recharge because we know what's coming. And we hit spring, and you feel things kick up a notch here at the farm. It really kicks off usually with the Easter season, and that can be late March, early April, to mid-April. It just depends on the year. But when spring hits, grass starts growing, weeds start growing. You got to start spraying and cutting and weed eating and tending grounds that you don't have to do so much in the winter. So that work picks up tremendously. The restaurant picks up. The activities on the weekends with family reunions and company picnics and things like that really pick up in the spring. Events pick up, rehearsal dinners, because wedding season starts to kick off. That gets busier. And then summer hits, and we've kind of hit our peak of all those private events and the restaurant getting busy and everything, and all that's kind of getting busy. And then the farm work just gets tremendous because now you're having to spray cut grass like every week, and you're having to trim Christmas trees because they're growing, and you're having to shape those in the middle of the summer. You're having to till fields and plant pumpkins by the 4th of July. You're having to plant the corn maize by the 1st of June. You're having to, it's all rushed. It's all about the weather. You can't wait. If you have a dry period and it's time to plant, you got to get it in the ground because it might rain again, and then you're 5 days out before the ground gets dry enough again, and now you're 10 days behind schedule on the corn maize or the pumpkins. And so everything is very rushed, very fast-paced.
Time sensitive.
Very time sensitive.
I would gather those are some of those, learning curves you had to figure out too.
Very much so. Learned hard way on some things over the years. Had crop failures on some things because of planting too early or planting too late. Yeah. Those things are all things that you learn over the years. And so we hit that summer season, and it's hot, but there's so much work that has to be done on the farm to get things ready for fall and Christmas. You're trimming, like I said, you're trimming and staking Christmas tree. You're picking berries. People are coming out to pick berries, which is not a busy time of year as far as customers, but there's just so much farm work. And the restaurant's busy, and the events are busy, and summer camps are busy. And then you kind of have this little bit of a dip in August when school starts back. Everybody's all focused on school. Everything in the whole, you can feel everything shift from summer to school, and everybody's getting their kids ready and their grandkids ready to go to school, and the football season's getting ready to start. But during that lull of us having kind of a dip in private events and rehearsal dinners, people really aren't getting married as much that time of year. Things just kind of slow down a little bit. We are ramping up and getting ready for fall. Yeah. We're going in and starting our summer projects. If there's some kind of construction or some kind of remodel or an addition that needs to be added, running electrical, fixing plumbing, adding a scene on the haunts, getting ready with the big stuff. And then you're starting to cut. You're cutting, passing the corn maize, you're fencing the corn maize, you're getting, kind of your final plan together for any major changes for that year. It's got to be done in August. In September, you got to finish it up. September, you're going out and you're starting to decorate. You're starting to put, airlines to scenes, set props up, knock all the wasp nests out of all the buildings, just really kind of the finer details of getting the farm ready.
Another example of utilizing the downtime to clean and fix and maintain.
And do farm.
So no downtime for you guys.
No downtime for us.
You guys are balls to the wall the whole time.
Except for maybe the winter. We're taking it kind of easy.
When is the sort of that cutoff where it's time to chill? Is it leading into Thanksgiving or?
No, for us now, since we've got choose and cut Christmas trees. So we go into our October, and it gets just busier and busier and busier until about the middle of October. It is insanely busy for us, and all the way through Halloween. There's makeup field trips into early November. We're breaking haunted props down. We're setting Christmas lights up, taking fall decorations down, putting Christmas decorations out, and then boom, we're open for Christmas season. Wow. So that period from Labor Day weekend, after we do Labor Day weekend until Christmas, it is just nonstop.
Would that be the busiest?
It'd be the busiest. I rarely have a day off during those months. If I do, it's a Sunday until fall starts, and then I don't even get a day off again until usually I take a little break, like a long weekend between fall and Christmas, just because I just have to have a day off because I hadn't had one in a couple of months now. And I take a few days, recharge the batteries, and then I come back and I'm working. I'm working till, just like I do haunts, I'm working till 10, 11, 12 o'clock, even later at night, 5, 6 days a week, setting up haunts before haunt season opens and getting the farm ready during the day for pumpkin season. And then the same thing for the Christmas lights. We're getting Christmas tree stuff set up during the day, and then I go into night shift and I'm setting up Christmas lights until I just wear out, and then I go to bed, and then I wake up next morning and start over again.
And your parents are like, man, I'm glad he's doing all that.
I'm glad he's doing all that now. Yeah.
So, as we wrap this up, I always like asking, what the future looks like. That 10,000-foot view. I certainly don't prod for stuff that you wouldn't want to announce yet.
Right.
But where do you see this farm, Cedar Hill Farm, in the next 10 years?
I think the sky's the limit on this place. It's always a work in progress. We're always trying to make it a little bit better every year. I would like and hope that we would continue to be on a trajectory to slowly grow this place and try to manage that growth to where we're one of the nicest, cleanest, funnest tourist attractions in the area, in the Mid-South area, and hope that one day there's another generation that can take the reins from me and give that youthful energy to it that it's going to need to take it further. Because at some point, if we hit that crossroads again and there's not that next generation for this type of business, or somebody to come in and buy it that has that youthful, that energy, then it would probably fade over time. So it's going to hit that point it'll be 20 years when I'm late 50s, early 60s, because I can always kind of slow the growth even more and maintain what I have. But for it to continue into the long term, it would take another generation. It would have to be passed down.
Just like you.
Just like me.
Get your kids involved, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about your kids real quick. How many do you have? What are their ages?
I've got 2. I've got a 13-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son.
Are they involved?
As much
do they show interest?
As much as a 13 and 11-year-old would. They're at that age where they just want to come out here with their friends and go through the activities and play, In a few more years, they'll start, working some part-time work and maybe see if they have any interest. And then they may get to a point where they're burnt out like I was when they leave high school. Maybe, hopefully, my hope is that at least one, if not both, would want to come back one day and be a part of it.
Maybe a 13-year-old can, involve the business with TikTok.
Maybe.
That's where they would come in.
That's right.
Oh, Dad,
That's right.
This is how you do social media.
That's
over
right.
here.
Yeah.
So awesome. Let's do some call to action here.
Okay.
As far as where you would like people to go, as far as websites, social media. Where would the best place for people to go to?
We do have a weekly email. They can sign up on our website at gocedarhillfarm.com, and we have a social media page. We've got Facebook, we've got Instagram. If they sign up on our weekly email, that's the best way to get notices about discounted tickets. And we offer, just to our loyal followers, every year we do sales, and we do like 50% off discount codes that's only available to them to buy season tickets and to come to the different attractions. And so that is something that people have learned over the years to really take advantage of, because things are getting expensive these days, and by no fault of our own, we're having to raise prices like everybody else in these times. So I think if people would sign up on that email list and take advantage of that, it's going to help. We want to help them because they're little customers, and it helps us. Pre-selling tickets helps us to get a little revenue in to help get things open, because it takes a lot of work before we ever get that first dollar coming in. So
the email list is so crucial, and I don't want to go into this marketing conversation here, but anyone listening, please understand that as simple as just subscribing to an email list is massive for a business.
Yeah.
Because it gives you that direct connection to an audience. You can post something on social media, cool. You can't control how many likes you get.
Right, and they throttle it unless you boost it and all these things. Yeah.
But I always equate an email list. When you send out an email, you're knocking on someone's front door. Hey, we have this for you if you want it.
It's an offer. You can take it or leave it. And
so whoever's watching and listening, don't feel like it's, no one's here to spam.
Right.
But man, it's so helpful in supporting a small business. Email list is massive.
It's big. It's big for us. I know it's big for a lot of other businesses to be on that weekly. We do it weekly because we have so much going on here, and there's always something. There's specials at the restaurant. There's seasonal changes, different tickets for different seasons that go on sale at different times, and so there's enough information out there that we do a weekly email. Some businesses, it may only be every other week or once a month, but for us it needs to be weekly to keep people informed of what's changing and what's coming up, and what berries are in season. We've got to soon make a decision about strawberries and when to let people maybe come pick strawberries or not, but we don't know the answer to that right now because of the weather. There's so many things that can affect, the crop and things that we have to keep people up to date with.
Yeah, announcements.
Yeah.
So what was that website one last time?
It's go cedarhillfarm.com.